Hey guys, this is Mark. Welcome to a video tutorial for building your very first FlowRunner flow. By the end of this tutorial, you will learn quite a few things which will be essential when it comes to building your own flows. These include adding blocks to a flow and connecting them to create an automation, passing data from one block to another, making external API requests and processing data from those requests and passing the data forward to some other blocks in the flow, configuring an AI router using a logging facility that is built into FlowRunner, configuring a schedule for your flow, and then running it to see the results. As you can see, there is a lot, yet the flow that we're going to build is very, very simple and it will be very easy to follow the instructions. There are a few prerequisites that you need to take care of before we proceed. First one is creating a Backendless developer account. If you don't have one, simply follow the link on your screen and create your account. Second, you will need to navigate in your browser to a service that is called newsapi.org. And in there, click the Get API Key button, fill out a form, you will get your own API key. We will need to use that API key in the flow that we will be building. Finally, log into your Backendless account and navigate to Flow Manager. This is the screen that I'm on. If you created a workspace in Backendless for FlowRunner training, you will have some sample flows here. And that is okay, as long as you can create a new flow, and that's the button right here, that's all that matters. So with all of that taken care of, let's dig in and create your very first FlowRunner flow. To get started, click the Create a New Flow button and give your flow a name. I will call mine my first flow. Click Create. The flow is created and you are taken to a screen that is called Flow Editor. On this screen, you get a canvas where you will be composing your automation by dragging blocks that you see right here. This is called toolbox. You will be dragging them into the canvas and connecting them to create an automation. The very first thing that we will do in our flow is we will make a request to newsapi.org to fetch some news articles on a particular subject. And to do this, let's locate the HTTP request block right here and drag it out onto the canvas. As you can see, there is the circle that says start, that this is an indicator and it will be present in every single flow that points out where your flow starts. And your flow can start with anything. It can start with an action, which is HTTP request. You can see actions, or you can start with a trigger, and we'll get to triggers. Actually, not in this flow, but in FlowRunner training, we will definitely get to triggers. Anyway, so let's focus on HTTP request. Click this block and you will see that a panel opens up, a configuration panel where you can add various properties of this action to configure it so it can actually do something useful. In our case, the URL that you need to put in here is going to be this one. You can copy it from wherever you watch this video. So if you're watching this video on our website, right under the video, there will be all the static text and configuration parameters that you can use. If you are watching this video in our documentation, you'll find the same parameters in the documentation. Or if it is on YouTube, then in the YouTube video description, you'll find these as well. So this is the base URL for the API request to fetch news articles. The HTTP method needs to change to GET. Finally, in the query, you need to put in the following. So it's going to be the keyword that we use to search, which is Q equals, and then you put the subject of interest. In our case, we will search for articles on quantum computing. And after that, there's going to be another parameter called API key. And this is where you put your API key that you registered for as a prerequisite. I'm going to locate mine and put it in here. All right, so now I have this key in there. At this point, this block is configured and we can actually test it out to see how well it works and what it returns. And to do this, you can turn on test mode, which is this toggle right here. And in test mode, all the blocks, and in this case, we have only one, will get this play icon that will run this block in test mode. So click this icon and you will see right here, this is the result of that API request. So we got a bunch of articles. Every single article has an author property, title, description, and content. Also notice that all the articles are located in the property key that is called articles, and it contains this JSON collection, JSON array. This is important because we will be using it further in the flow. Something else to point out is when you turn on test mode, notice that any data that you had to configure is highlighted in this light orange color, and it says test data. This is quite important because in FlowRunner, whenever you're testing your blocks, you actually have two sets of data. One is the test data, and the other is non-test data. Whenever you configured this block initially by following my instructions here, you configured the non-test data. And when you turn on the test mode, your non-test data got transferred into test data. So in fact, you can switch back and forth by clicking this button. So this is the production non-test, and this is test data. Test data can be different, so you can actually test out, try different things. It will not mess with your flow. And then if you arrived at whatever works for you and you want to apply it to non-test, just use this button and it will apply whatever your test data is to the non-test. So now let's quit the test mode because we know this block works well. And then switch to Toolbox and locate AI Router. AI Router needs to be dragged out here. So now you have two blocks in your flow. And then you need to connect HTTP request with AI Router. On HTTP request, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit, notice that you have this icon, okay, that looks like links, okay? So you can just click and drag it out and connect with AI Router, okay? And at this point, we have actual flow. So what's going to happen is when the flow starts, this is executed, and then the flow will continue into AI Router, okay? So this really just indicates sort of the sequence of execution of various steps in your flow. Click the AI Router block, and now we need to configure AI Router. So one of the first element of the configuration for AI Router is the AI decision request. You will also find the text that we prepared in our documentation website or YouTube channel, no matter where you watch this video. So just paste it right here. And then what it says is that you will be provided a collection of JSON objects. These objects represent news articles. And then we identify which properties to take: title, description, content, and then we will ask AI Router to analyze the sentiment in all of these articles for quantum computing. So we're asking AI to really analyze everything that we provide and determine whether the sentiment on quantum computing is positive, negative, or neutral. So those conclusions that we expect AI to make will need to be defined in a section that is called expected decisions. In fact, the AI Router block works in a way where you provide some data to it, and then you outline the decisions that you would like it to make and pick one, essentially. Now, the sentiment that we will, sentiment decisions that we want AI Router to make will be the following. So click in the expected decisions, the plus icon, and type in this one, positive. That's going to be one of the decisions. Then click the plus again, and this one will be called negative. And then third one can actually be neutral. So now we have three outcomes. There is also one that is called everything else. And if you notice that everything else was there to begin with, AI Router actually comes with everything else. Okay. And this one is quite important. If AI could not determine the sentiment to be one of these, then it will be everything else with the actual decision that is something else. We don't know what it is yet, but more than likely, these will be sufficient in this case. What's important to note is that there will always be this everything else as a separate branch that you will need to take care of. Also notice that for every single expected decision that we have put in here, there is now a connector that is that exists in AI router. So you will see that positive, negative, neutral, and everything else are all these dots that can be connected to something else. Finally, we actually need to send data into AI router, and that data is going to be coming from HTTP request. The way this works in FlowRunner is actually quite simple. So in HTTP request, if you click this block, right here in the properties sheet, you will see that there is a field that says reference result data as and a value, HTTP request result. And you can customize this value to be something else, okay? We'll just leave it as default for now. So now if you go to AI router, notice that there is this field called decision data. So we will say that the decision data will be called news articles, and then the value for these news articles will have to be specified. In many areas in FlowRunner, whenever you need to provide a value, you will notice this icon, okay, this magic stick, okay, magic wand. In this case, when you click on it, it will open a special interface that is called Expression Editor, okay? An Expression Editor is available in many parts of FlowRunner. Just in AI Router alone, the actual prompt could be configured with Expression Editor. But in this case, the prompt that we configured is just plain text that can be just typed in right here. But it can get more complicated. So for now, let's just say that the decision data is going to be news articles. And then the value for this will come from Expression Editor. So click this icon and notice under block results, we get this HTTP request result. This is the data that this block has returned. So you can take this and then drag it into expression. So now we're basically saying that the output from HTTP request will be the input data into AI router. Also, we want to do this. In the result, notice that when we were inspecting that JSON, there was a property called articles, and that property contained the actual JSON collection, JSON list of news article objects. So what we want to do is we're going to click this pencil and specify that we want to get property articles. Press return. So we will get articles from this result, and that's what's going to go into AI router. Okay, so just like with HTTP request, we can actually test it out to see how this AI router will act for the data that we get. Turn on test mode, and in here, run HTTP request first. We got our data. This articles is going to be passed into AI router. So for the AI router, it actually does not let us click just because there are no connectors for these decisions. So let's do this. Let's fix these problems first, and then we will come back to test it out. For the demo purposes, what's going to happen next is we will use the built-in logging mechanism in FlowRunner to log the result of the AI router. And for this, if you go back to the toolbox by clicking this icon, notice that there is this icon for the marketplace. It's a shopping cart. Click this icon and this will open up. And in here you will find this FlowRunner Logger. Click it and then click Get. You will need to click then Install button. This will install FlowRunner Logger as an extension to FlowRunner. In fact, if you once it is installed, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you will see this Flow Logger at the bottom. Expand it, and there's going to be one action called log message. Drag it out here. Okay, so log message. And I will show you how that log message works. So now that we have this log message, drag positive to this guy. And then what's going to happen is whenever AI router determines that this is going to be positive outcome, it will go to this log message. And log message, click it, and then the message, it will say the sentiment is positive. Okay. And then the actual name of this can also be modified. And then we can say log positive. And notice when we change this, this label on the box also changes. Let's repeat this process for all other outcomes, just so we have a separate logging action for all of them. So this one, let's say it's going to be log negative. And then the message will say the sentiment is negative. And connect negative to this. Finally, two more. For this one, we will log everything else, but we also want to know what is it that AI determined that is not positive, negative, or neutral. So our logging information will be quite different. And let me show you what it will do. So first of all, let's change the label, log everything else. And in here, we'll say that AI could not determine the sentiment. AI's response is, and then the question is, well, how do we get the actual AI response? And for this, we can use expression editor. So click this. Notice that there is this block AI router result. And that's the one that we're going to drag out here. And then the property in that result is going to be called decision. So decision is what's going to be the actual decision that is not positive, negative, or neutral. Now, at this point, the flow is configured. Okay. However, we are not fully done with configuring the logging. So to configure the logging, open a new browser window. And in that window, you will need to navigate to logger.flowrunner.ai. And what you will see is a page that looks like this. So I went to logger.flowrunner.ai. It will display a 5-digit code that I would like you to copy. And then on any one of these log actions, just click it and then click the configure button. And in here, you want to paste that code that you copied from the logger window. So click save. And at this point, all of them are configured. So now we can actually run this flow in debug mode and see how well it works and what actually is going to happen. So first of all, turn on test mode, and let's start with our HTTP request. So click it. Here's the result. Now for the AI router, click it and then click run in test mode. Notice that it came back with a decision that said neutral, which means it will continue down this path. And then for neutral, it will log this message. So for this, I will have this window, although it will probably just overlap once I click, but that's okay. I will be able to get to it. So click log neutral and then go back here and notice that in the logger, it says the sentiment is neutral. So all of these log boxes, whatever you put in here is what's going to go into that logger window. Okay. And at this point, the flow is complete. This is all the automation that we will configure in that FlowRunner flow. Let's go back to Flow Manager. And then in Flow Manager, whenever it says it's ready, it means it is ready for launching. It is not live yet. What we want to do is we can click on Configure Flow Schedule. And then in the frequency, you can select every X seconds. So we can just configure to run it every 60 seconds. Click Save. And now if you start the flow, it started in our flow logger. Okay. Once the flow runs, we will see additional log messages right here in the flow logger. It just came in, so this is the, again, neutral, just because the news articles haven't really changed. Okay, and at this point, that concludes creation of the very first FlowRunner flow. Make sure to stop it, just because if it runs every 60 seconds, it will exhaust the limits of the API key that you provided to fetch news articles. And with that, that's going to conclude this training video, our video tutorial. I hope you found this useful. There will be plenty more video tutorials with a formal FlowRunner training, so stay tuned. And it will show up in our YouTube channel and perhaps a few other training sites that publish training materials. Thank you for watching this video, and as always, happy automating.